Welcome to On the Chain Roundtable. This is Jeff with co-host Chip over there. We've got a very special guest with us tonight, Sean Thompson, right over here. What is up,
What's up,
Sean?
Sean?
Great to have you
How's it
here.
going? How's it going, guys? I'm glad to be here.
It's
Good to
it's
have you.
awesome to have you here. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, we love engaging with people from the community. There's so much happening here. There's so much intelligence in our space, in our community, and having you here with us today is outstanding. Really looking forward to today's conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about XRP, just a little bit, because people like talking about XRP. People like talking about the changes within Ripple. We like talking about regulation, regulatory clarity. We like talking about Bitcoin every so often. And we like looking over at what's going on with China and their digital yuan and the imbalances there. And there has to be some big surprise, clampdown going on over there when it comes to an exchange. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I think we should get started. What do you think, Chip?
How about right now?
And now, the Roundtable with Jeff and Chip on the chain.
You also forgot on the chain. We're here, man. So
On the chain.
I was waiting for you to say, and we like to talk about coffee because that's something we always like to talk about. Coffee. You probably more so than anybody.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's good to talk about coffee in the evenings. You know, the best part about talking about coffee is that you used to drink the drip brown water, and now you've moved over to espresso.
Yeah, you corrupted me, Jeff. You totally corrupted me. You made me really see the light.
That's right. Yeah. And if you're drinking the espresso, who's that in the background? Sounds like Julius.
It might be Julius in the background. It sounds just like Julius.
I think that was actually over here at this. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that's, we don't know what that is exactly. I'm not going to even ask you where you are. You're from an undisclosed secret location in a bunker somewhere.
Right.
Down below.
Not even my bunker. It's a buddy's bunker.
Well, there you go.
No,
that'll work.
Had some technical issues before, so yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we got this going. Let's kick this off. You know what a great place to start would be? Let's talk just a little bit. One of the things Chip always likes to remind people of, if you're not holding the keys, it's not your crypto. And right now there's this exchange called OKEX. I'm not sure if it's a decentralized exchange. I don't think it is, but I know that it's an exchange out of China. And there's some issues going on over there right now. It's been shut down for about a week. And the crazy thing about it is that the founder, CEO of the exchange is holding all the keys. So again, another one. We just went through this in Canada, didn't we?
We just went, is that the guy that disappeared in India on some pilgrimage, and all of a sudden he disappears and nobody knows anything. And then, so there's a whale that lost 45 million in Bitcoin on that exchange. Can you imagine? Why would you keep $45 million on an exchange? I mean, in Bitcoin. Think about that. Even if you put it on a few cold storage places, or if you spread it out between, why would you keep it on one exchange? That's weird. Sean, what do you think about that? I mean, what do you think about these hacks and people, these exchanges?
I think if I had 45 million in Bitcoin, they'd be spread out over several different institutions and or cold storage facilities. Because most people that I know that are rich, they don't have all their money in one bank.
Right.
Or they might have a couple of safes at the house, or in different locations. Nothing's ever kept in one location. I mean, I don't even keep all my coins, my fiat coins, in the same location.
Right.
Right. Well, exactly. That's exactly right.
Man.
That's it. I would be terrified. I couldn't imagine. Oh, look, hey, it's a Chinese exchange, and let's put everything. I put everything over there. 45 million. That's insane. But maybe the guy's got
45 million on each
hundreds.
Exchange.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
we don't know.
That'd
He's got 10 different exchanges with 45 million. I think I would have probably 400 exchanges with $1 million each.
Right.
Well, also too, the whole idea of it being a Chinese national, I guess, authorized, doing the right thing, keeping it in China, because remember, they were against Bitcoin. We don't like Bitcoin. Bitcoin's bad.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we find out, well, they've just been mining the hell out of Bitcoin forever and a day. So it's like, it's not what they say, it's what they do. And a lot of times we don't know that do part. We just know what they say. There's a lot of conversation and talk, and there's
right.
CBDC, but I don't see that being really used by the rest of the world because it's breaking all the rules. Almost all these CBDCs for institutional stuff, yeah, you can move from bank, to bank, or, you can use it as digital, but how does it affect the consumer on a consumer basis? How is the consumer going to take advantage of it? And, should a consumer? And then how much are they going to mint? Is it open-ended? I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts, John, on this whole CBDC conversation and how it's all of a sudden everybody in the world seems to be behind it now?
Well, frankly, I don't quite understand it because if you're going to use XRP, XLM, or any of these other currencies out there, that's one thing. But to do a CBDC, it seems like it would only have a use in intra-bank settlements, but back-end stuff, not somewhere where that would be retail facing. So a part of me doesn't even understand why they're doing it, other than to have their own, walled garden, if you will, or silo to take care of their internal business.
Exactly.
It's problematic, right? I mean, it's interesting, and I'm trying to think of where I heard this. It was on one of the shows somewhere. Could have been YouTube. It could have been the news. But they're talking about countries or people wanting more sovereignty over the currency and to take it out of the hands of the governments. But it made me think that when you have central banks involved, or here in the US, we have the Fed involved, isn't the government, don't we already have separation of government and currency to an extent? Not the minting of the money, but the control over it. What do you think? I mean, the CBDC, the Fed, isn't it all kind of the same?
I guess that would be my point, is that nothing changes for the consumer. I don't see how the consumer would be able to use the currency for whatever reasons and be able to get any benefit out of it, whether it be a CBDC or a fiat, because it's still going to be centrally controlled.
That's it.
So I don't get it.
Well,
no,
it doesn't make sense. Well, let's say, there's an article that came out about, I was trying to find it, but it was about Bank of America, CBDCs, talking about inflation, talking about a lot of different things. But the whole idea of the CB, you're right, Jeff. I mean, we're moving in the wrong direction. We're basically moving back to Wall Street 2.0. The whole idea of Bitcoin, the promise of Bitcoin anyway, was decentralized and not have to worry about that intermediary being a bank and then the control of it, and then the banks and then the central banks controlling it even a bit further. But the way it works for the Federal Reserve is that it's a debt-based system where the Fed loans the money to the US based on debt. We don't own our own currency. So for us to move to the Fed to now mint digital stuff, it's the same garbage recycled into a new wrapper, and it doesn't really benefit. Now, if the U.S. was going to say, "Hey, we're going to go to we're going to go to a national coin," which has been floated also, where they have their own coin, and we're not dealing with the debt because all of this stuff, it has a lifespan. The whole debt, and we're coming way due on it with all of the with the debt around the entire world. We're like at $24 trillion in debt here in the U.S. When Bush was in office, he blew it up 5 trillion, and then when Obama came in, he blew it up 10 trillion. Now Trump's on a mission to even go more damage. I mean, it's like it's like just blowing it up, period. And getting away from that debt-ridden system, because that debt is what's crushing everything. We cannot continue to pay for. Why are we paying interest payments? Why are we paying interest payments to the Fed? The Fed, they can do anything they want. There's no audit. We don't know what their balance sheet looks like. We don't even know where a lot of the money and or gold and other funny business that could be going on. So when I hear central bank digital currency, I think this is a really bad move, and we're going in the wrong direction. Now, if the countries themselves would protect their own sovereignty and they would go ahead and mint some kind of a national coin or something that they control, and they don't have that debt, that is the right way to go. But nobody seems to be having this conversation. Jeff and I are the only ones out there saying, hey, this doesn't make any sense. And it's just like Wall Street. We had Alex Mashinsky on here, and Alex brought something up really, really good. He goes, the whole idea of crypto exchanges and doing something different was to get away from Wall Street. And then everybody's flocking back to Wall Street with the same old garbage.
That's it.
Creatures of habit.
That's it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think
probably a little bit of both.
I think it's horrible.
I do too.
Especially when it comes to the economy.
And how decentralized is it?
Which part?
Well, CBDC. So they go ahead and hack whatever it is, because there's one country who was taking XLM. They were taking the Stellar sort of blockchain. There's other ones using different solutions out there, but it's centralized blockchain. That's again going away from. Is any of that going to be transparent on the blockchain? Are consumers going to be able to see that? I doubt it. I mean, I could be wrong on this, but I don't see the Fed. I mean, the whole idea of blockchain is you can track everything. So if a politician, one of the things floating around is a politician should get audited every 2 years. Full audit and everything. Because somehow they go in, they have $175,000 and they make, all of a sudden millions. They come out 10 years later and they got just millions of dollars. For what? Why?
And houses all over the place.
Houses, boats, cars. And they're living the fat life.
Yeah, they're privy to be able to make decisions based on legislation that's going to come out or get passed, and they'll know about it ahead of time. And I've heard it considered legal insider trading.
That's it. Yeah,
if you're a congressman or a senator.
Yeah, they have to overlook that, mainly because how could you wouldn't be able to trade stock or buy stock, because you're always privy to certain information. So they've almost kind of turned a blind eye to that fact of insider trading, which I think we're at a point where, and I'm sure Wen Mullet's saying, hey, one of these guys is going to get back to crypto. They're starting to talk about politics. But, I think, when we get into the political spot of things, we've allowed too much leniency to the politicians, like Chip saying, audit these guys, see what's happening. It's going to become here's where it becomes interesting with blockchain, right? Because if salaries, if the tracking mechanism and the auditing mechanism ends up on blockchain, now everything that you do is traceable and trackable. And if you operate, so let's say a politician, 100%, you're a publicly elected representative, everything you do at this point, from this point forward, not before, but from this point forward, everything has to be tracked. You put it into the blockchain. I want to see where your money comes from. I want to see where your money goes. I don't care if it's personal money or not. You're on the payroll. You're on the public payroll. So everything that you're influenced by is now going to impact your decision making. That's going to impact the people that have put you there to represent them in politics. You know what? That's a sacrifice that you make. You go there for 2 years. I think you need to serve 2 full terms in order to get pension. Yeah. That's not bad. I think they get like 90% of their pension, or their salary. So Chip's saying 175, they leave after 2 terms, they get 170 or 90% or 80% of that $175,000 for life.
For life.
For however long, a lot of these guys are lifers. So we've never even put them on pension, but they're impacting everything that we do, from a financial perspective, it's the right thing. But this is where the technology really crosses over. What do you think on this one, Sean? So blockchain for voting.
Oh, I'm 100%. 100%. If they can put in infrastructure in place so that every individual, when they vote, it's recorded on the blockchain, and there's 2 requirements. You have to be over 18 and alive.
That's a good.
The live part has to be valid.
Oh, yes.
We're down in God's waiting room, so I don't know.
and also, so that I think that would help prevent, they say, dead people voting or people voting twice. Maybe, vote in Ocala, Florida, then go vote in Miami on the same day. Right. Yeah, and have stuff like that count. So yeah, I think the blockchain would be I think it's very well needed.
Yeah. How about Mickey Mouse? No.
Yeah, him too.
Yeah, right.
That's so weird you said that. I almost said that, Jeff. That's so weird. No wonder. It's so bizarro. Yeah, well, the thing is, like, so that patent came out not too long ago. The post office was granted a patent, and I'm almost okay with any entity in the entire world having a blockchain system. And then when they said the post office, I'm like, no. I mean, the post office is like one of the worst places you could go. Every once in a while, I have to go mail out a package or do something. It's almost like when you order food. You go up there and you say like, hey, I'd like to send this package just whenever it gets there, not first class, nothing. Do you want to send it first class? No, 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 no. I just whenever it gets there. How do you want to send it? Just whatever, Well, we have first class, and it's like when you order like food anymore, you go up there and like, hi, I'd like 2 tacos, fish tacos with this, and they go, what would you like? 2 fish tacos. Do you want anything on that? No, no, no. I just want them the way they come. Do you want something to drink? Yeah, I told you. It's nobody listens. No, everyone's instant gratification. Everyone's stuck on their phone. So I don't like the post office. I don't know if they should be in charge of it. But
They have a
again,
lot of ammunition.
but that comes down to a lot of like who should really be running it, because there's always the trust factor. One vote on a blockchain, one person, one vote, alive, over 18. And so we go back to blockchain technologies, everything that blockchain, and then we got wind this week that FinCEN and the Federal Reserve, they want to change the travel rule. Now, the travel rule used to state that anything under $3,000 would be, you'd have to report it. But now what they want to do is they want to take any crypto firm that is sending $250. So that would be like your exchanges or like some kind of a crypto, I guess crypto firm is like something like a Ripple or whatever. If they're sending it, I'm like, and they want open discussion on that. What do you think about it? Because again, they bring it back to this whole story of, illegal representation, money laundering, tax evasion, all this stuff. So I don't know. Do you think 250 is reasonable, or do you think they should just keep it put at 3,000?
Unreasonable.
I think it's weird, right? 250? It's like
$250.
$250, but what they said in the report is they said that it was based on the fact that I think it was they had some weird number. They go between $482 and $600 is like the average payment. I'm like, okay, so then why do you need it to be 250? I mean, the whole idea of doing this. I mean, can you imagine that, Sean? Every time you send $250 internationally, that has to be reported. We already do.
I think that's a waste of time.
Exactly.
I think that's a complete waste of time.
All right, Chip. Here, I'm gonna send this 250 to you.
All right, go ahead.
The thing, and now they just tracked me, right? They just
tracked
cash.
you.
That's the best. So they already have limitation in terms of like fiat currency, right? So if, when you're traveling, there's definite restriction. What is the restriction? Under $10,000, in fiat, you can't carry more than $10,000 in fiat with you when you're traveling cross border. So if you carry $9,999 and you get stopped at the border, then there's really nothing they can do. Just make sure that you're under that threshold. But that $250, but that's going to be digital asset specific, I gotta believe, right, Chip?
Exactly, it's digital asset specific, but
yeah.
The whole idea is, what's the whole idea for AML KYC? You know your customer. Anti-money laundering is supposed to cover it, but then what they want, the Fed is saying the government wants to be able to track them all because they think they could parse that data and find some more bad stuff going on. Yeah, but when we were talking earlier, you had another opinion on why they're really doing this, Sean. What were you saying?
Taxes.
There you go. Boom.
They never mentioned that part, did they?
No. Federal, state, local. It's all about taxes. It's not about I honestly don't even think that the Fed even cares about what people being taken advantage of. I think what they care about is they want to be able to collect taxes and get some of their money back.
Yeah, right on. That's it. Taxman gonna get
Canada.
their money.
Yeah, Canada wants that too. Yeah, I think Canada, when they're looking at blockchain, and there's all these different proposals going on over in Canada, but that's one of the things they look at blockchain. And they put an article out. They said this is gonna be great. Let's make sure that everybody has paid their taxes. And there's something
how's that going to be great?
Wrong about that.
How is that going to be great? That doesn't sound great to me.
It's not great for anybody. I mean, but to a point though, AML, KYC, it's interesting going back over to China. They're actually shutting down, or they're trying to shut down Tether, and one of the other, I don't know if it was the USDC or one of the other stable coins, that from their perspective, they're saying it's being utilized for illegally funding gambling and all these different things. And it came out of one of the agencies over in China. I find it really hard to believe that they're going to focus in on a Tether and say that that one specifically, or one of the USD ones, stable coins, is going to have an issue, when what they're trying to do is really shut down and crush. But those are the different things that you're going to get out of centralized control government, or, I mean, that could be anywhere, not just in China. It could be in the US, it could be in Canada, anywhere where they feel that there's going to be an impact on their sovereignty, their sovereign control, over the citizenry, over the taxes, over movement of money.
Exactly. Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, I just think it's a bad direction we're moving in. I think we should really pay a little bit more mind to it. So, the other thing we're hearing when it comes to CBDCs is that they talk about it in a lot of different ways. Like, they talk about what could be on the institution side, they talk about it on the consumer side, but they're missing the big conversation, which is interoperability, right? So you need that bridge, and something that probably would be a great fit. I mean, XRP, but also you have Stellar Lumens. You could have XLM too, which both of those could really be a positive fit. But and all these things, conversations, they go like, oh no, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then we got wind of Serdan had mentioned that what they're doing in Croatia, that they're doing a with the bank over there, and they have their own proprietary system that they're going through to be able to move large funds. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know where we go from this, but Sean, do you think on the interoperability side, I mean, how come they're not talking about that bit of it?
I'm not sure about that. But one thing I wanted to go back to what Jeff was saying earlier is that in reference to taxes, imagine a world where you work a job, and instead of getting paid every 2 weeks, you get streamed income on a daily basis. And as that income is streaming into your account, then taxes are streaming out of your account to go to the government. And I think that's something that they're looking towards in the future. Just like paying for your electricity per kilowatt as it happens during the course of a day or 2 days, or if you go out of town for a week and don't use any electricity, you're not paying the electric company. But the minute you get back, it's already set up, and you start paying them again.
That's a great idea.
That's interesting. I like that idea.
And I think also, and I think also, and that makes it more important with taxes going to the government, income coming to you from your job, and paying the electric company and the gas company. That interoperability is extremely vital, because the electric company's infrastructure is going to be different from the Fed's, which will be different from where you get your paycheck.
Yeah, and that's probably a good thing too, that they're all a little bit different. So, right. But I mean, but we don't hear a lot about there has to be some sort of bridge, and we kind of forget sometimes. We always think about cross-border payments. You look at Bitso, which has had tremendous success with remittances in Mexico. Then all of a sudden, in the same week that it's announced that PayPal is going to offer crypto, and I want to get into, I want to dive a little bit deeper on that too. But all of a sudden, we hear that, interestingly enough, that PayPal is interested in perhaps acquiring Bitso. So it's a really interesting conversation, but why not? Why, the buy versus build conversation, it's always better it's easier and faster to just acquire something than try to go out there and figure it out. And they've already figured it out, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But here's the thing a lot of people said about that, and I disagree. So there's two sides of this. There's two sort of camps. When it first came out, everyone's like, oh, PayPal and all these users. And then all of a sudden you started seeing all this negativity unfold. And they go like, yeah, but you don't have your own keys. And if you don't have your keys and you don't have your crypto. But I said, no, what they did was they pulled the Robinhood. Robinhood, you can buy crypto too. You can't move it off there. The only way to move it off there is to sell it. But when we're talking about bringing newer people into the space, we can't get into, well, you just get a ledger and you do this and you do that. And they're like, whoa, it's too much stuff, right? So I think for attracting newer audiences, I mean, do you think it's as important for like a Robinhood or let's say, PayPal, whether you have your own keys or not? Or do you think it's just a good introduction to cryptocurrency?
Oh, I think it's a great introduction to cryptocurrency, because what happens is you bring more people into the space, and then now all of a sudden the market caps of the various coins or the space in general goes up, and that's good for everybody. And and my thought would be that PayPal would introduce it so you can buy and hold crypto. Then eventually they'll say, okay, you could you could trade in and out of certain coins that they offer. Then you'll be able to sell in or out to other platforms, or put it on a ledger, or whatever you want to do. But they just want to make sure they, do it in stages to make sure it's right. I mean, on Cash App, I didn't know that you could. I mean, you could buy stocks on Cash App right now. A few months ago, you could only buy Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a few months before that, you could buy the Bitcoin, but you couldn't transfer it to another platform. But now you can. Cash App as a platform, at first you were just trading digital money, if you will, between friends. And then they offered a debit card. So it's got the full routing and numbers that you would like a regular credit card. And then what they offered after that is a routing and transit number to make it a bank if you want to get your stimulus check deposit directly to your Cash App platform. So everything's done in stages. I mean, I just bought GE stock on Cash App not too long ago. That's amazing to me, because at first I didn't even know about Cash App until my daughter told me about it.
It's a good thing we have kids. They're smart with this stuff, right?
Right. Yes. So
yeah, my 16-year-old daughter says she goes, I want to take some of the money that I earned on my job, coaching soccer, and I want to buy some Apple stock. And I'm like, all right, because I told her she should take 20% of it and invest it in something. Her money, she actually has skin in the game. You know what I mean? You have to put something at risk. So It's great if you can buy it for them, but it's good for them to start seeing themselves, because now they're involved. Like, what other they're looking at? She was looking at a bunch of stuff. It didn't come out as Apple. First it was a couple things, and then some of her friends are doing that. And I'm thinking, one of her friends who's doing basically full-blown day trading is doing really well at it, and it's his money. And I'm like, this kid's blowing. I'm like, I want to hang around more kids like that, okay? Not these other kids that are aimlessly just walking into walls with their mobile phone, because they're not paying attention, So, I mean, I think you're right. It is stages. Jeff, I mean, do we expect them, if they wait, maybe they don't release it at all. Maybe that's part of the problem they have. What do you think?
Focused on PayPal and Robinhood, I think it's an interesting dynamic, because it does bring mainstream adoption, and we talk about this a lot, that in order for there to be mainstream adoption, people want to function in a space that they're comfortable functioning in. A lot of people aren't comfortable with this idea of holding your own and controlling your own keys. They don't want to know about that. So being on an exchange like PayPal, for instance, and it's interesting because a lot of people are going to say, hey, it's not your keys, not your crypto. With PayPal is a major, institution. So do you, then fear that at some point, PayPal is going to go out of business and they're going to lose all of that investment that you just put in? Your digital assets not even at stake with PayPal if they get hacked. Because you're not really holding keys. You're just they're basically just giving you a representation of the digital asset that you hold. They're saying that you're holding a share of, stock, Apple stock, just the same as you're holding, a fraction or one whole Bitcoin or other digital asset. That's it. That's all they're telling you, so it's the same type of scenario. And so I'm wondering, even with a Robinhood, so a lot of the stock platforms, can you even move your holdings over to another exchange, or do you have to sell it before you move it? It's not like, I think it's a similar type of dynamic, where, for good or bad, however you want to look at it. I'm looking, I've got holdings on Robinhood in digital asset. I had money over there. I pulled out a stock. I put into digital asset to see how it'd be. But now I'm thinking, hey, I don't want it there anymore, and I want to move it, but I can't move it,
No.
because now I'm going to have to sell it. And if I sell it, then I have to transfer it to my bank account. Then I got to move the money from the bank account to the exchange. and now I have to go rebuy again, and
but
that's
then you
not
have to
going
pay
work.
tax on it too. So if you had any sort of an incremental increase on there, now you
That's
got a tax thing
exactly.
where now, yeah,
Exactly. Great point. So now you have a realized gain. Now you're going to pay your tax. Now you're going to move it. Now you're going to have less, but you got a gain. So
yeah, hey,
depends
tax
how
man,
you look
Jeff's
at it.
been selling stuff on Robinhood. Just want to give you a heads up. Okay, go ahead, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and that's on the public airways, and
Now,
it's been.
there's one thing I did hear that's pretty interesting.
Oh, hey, man, hang on a second. Go ahead. What'd you hear?
Okay, so there's this guy named Clinton Donnelly. I guess he's a crypto tax guy. And one of the things that we could probably take advantage of, now don't quote me this, I'm not your accountant or an accountant, I'm not an investment advisor, is that you could sell out like your Bitcoin out from whatever exchange you're on, go to another exchange, but then you could fill out a paper form, a 1031 exchange form. So you would make it a non-taxable event. So I think there's still some, things that could help us out if we have to do something like that. Although at this point, I would prefer just not to have any crypto on PayPal's exchange until you can get in and out and do what you need to do. What we're used to doing, I should say.
Yeah, right. Well, good. I'm glad you're my new financial advisor. That's good to know. But yeah, I mean, well, now they've got that box on that on when you file taxes. They moved it from, hey, do you know somebody kind of like maybe you might know something about crypto? Now it's like, have you held it? Have you talked about it? Did you ever mention it in a conversation? Because we want to know. It's like,
Well,
maybe.
that's interesting that you bring that up. So now on the top of your form, you have to mention that you have bought or sold digital asset. What if you buy it on Robinhood or PayPal? You're not really buying digital asset. You're investing in digital asset, but you're not really buying it because you don't have it. So how do you report that now?
I don't know.
So
We
they're
talked
gonna,
to Clinton Donnelly or whatever his name
I
is.
don't
We
know.
asked him.
Yeah, that's a good question. Not your key, not your crypto. So they could say, hey, but you bought Bitcoin on PayPal. No, well, I didn't really because I didn't own it. I had no control over it. I had no possession over it.
He played. This is called Stump the Panelist right now. Yeah, I don't know how that works out, but I wanted to segue to another big topic that's been blown up is the whole idea of Ripple potentially moving. They talked about Singapore or moving to London, right? Because of the whole idea, or UK is what they said. I mean, we're just assuming London, but and it's potentially they could do it. There's ways they could probably just do it without actually moving the whole entire operation there, but just headquartering it there. And it would give them some advantages, but I think, well, I'll say my thoughts for the end, but I wanted to get your take on it first, Sean, then we'll circle back to Jeff and what your thoughts are about, this hype about, is it real? Are they really going to move? Does it make sense to move Ripple?
I mean, I think it's always a possibility that they move either to London or Singapore or whatever, or Japan, because they already have offices there. However, I also believe that the world is a stage. And things are said and done, and things are said one way but done another, just to keep people off their game. So, or maybe it's just they're saying that just to get the federal government to go ahead and kick in some good regulations, so there could be no guessing.
Yeah, Jeff, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I talked about this the other day, but I think it's interesting. I personally, I believe that Ripple put their headquarters in the wrong place to begin with. I think San Francisco is the high tech area, but not the banking space. They should have positioned that a little bit differently. But that being said, that's in the U.S. market. But as they transition out, I believe that if you want to develop a specific region, you want to open up the banking space, because one of the things that Brad Garlinghouse had mentioned, I reviewed this on one of the videos, they're moving from adoption to growth. When you go into growth phase, maybe they're making a big play about this right now just for, talking points to the government to give them a little bit of a push. But when you go into growth phase, you need to have more of a regional presence and regional influence in order to influence the banks, right? The banks are going to look at you. Oh, you're in San Francisco. All right, great. But now if you're in London and you want to impact banks over in Europe, they're going to say, hey, okay, you've got, you've mentioned, Chip, some skin in the game. You've actually got a stake now. You have an office, you have presence, you understand the European regulation better because you have a local office presence here in Europe. Same thing if you're going to move over to Asia. Is it going to be Japan or Singapore? I think they're going to need an office in the Middle East. So I think they should focus in on Dubai as having a central office there for all of the Middle East, from a regulatory perspective. But the banks want to have regional presence, just like with everything else. It doesn't matter what business you're in, it becomes a relationship thing. These banks over there are going to develop and they're going to onboard because of local relationships, not because of some companies sitting over in San Francisco. So I would love to see them leave San Francisco. I think that was a big mistake right from day one.
Yeah, I think they've been. I like the fact that CNBC has been covering them, because you look at CNBC, they have been saying, well, here's a Ripple company. They're thinking about moving because of regulatory uncertainty. And, I think that's a good thing, because if it starts bubbling up to the Yahoo Newses and, the New York Times and, more mainstream sort of media, you got to remember who watches mainstream media. Politicians watch it. They're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Here's a $10 billion company who wants to leave the United States, and these other companies have already left. So I do think it is a little bit of what you're saying, Jeff, a little bit of talking points, perhaps a little bit of, sort of floating the idea too, see what the reaction is, how are people going to react to it? And ultimately, as investors in XRP, as digital asset holders, you want a company that doesn't get hamstrung, right? You don't want them to be, tied up. They can't do anything, and they're one of the few companies. You look at Ripple; they're one of the few companies that have been working with regulators, for the last 8.5 years, and they've been working with regulators. They've been trying to do everything right, and meanwhile, they're getting, slapped, and they're not getting what they want, and you're finding other things in other places, like you said, Jeff. The whole San Francisco thing, yeah, I guess, as a tech startup, but really it's not really what their end game is. And I don't think it really matters where their offices are, but somebody did something pretty clever. They went over to find where the office is in the building over in London. And then one of the things that they did was they ended up saying, look, they're on the 6th floor, and the 7th and 8th floor, they're both available. So they could potentially just move everything. But, in a virtual type of world, people don't necessarily have to move anymore. Like you simply just say, this is no longer our headquarters, just a regional office. And then the other one, we just go over there, and it's pretty, there's a lot of paperwork in that. And then there's another consideration. If they ever want to do an initial public offering, that's another potential problem too. Now, if you're based, your country is based, your home is based somewhere else, that's another thing to consider, which if we know they're going to IPO at some point. When things get going, like Jeff said, they're in this growth phase, they're starting to move down the road. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that they're going to go do an initial public offering. They probably would go the way that a lot of other companies are going, not have to do it, do it with private money. There's a way to kind of, these companies have been backdooring all that right now. But I don't know. I don't really see them moving. I'll be surprised if they actually move. But look, if push comes to shove and they get another 6 months and nothing's happening, I can't blame them. Look, they need to move forward. We all need to move forward.
Yeah, Chip, I want you to touch on that a little bit more, on the idea of the IPO, right? I think that's a really important point that is being kind of left off the table right now, because if they're planning on an IPO, they're not going to move their headquarters to another country. If they want to IPO, they're going to keep it in the U.S. They're probably not going to leave the San Francisco area, but I think that's a really valid point.
That's something I wanted to speak to as well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean. Why don't you grab that? One
thing I would say is that, if they IPO, they can't go. Leave. And also, I think.
Wait a minute, say that again. If they IPO, they can't go. If they IPO, they can't. It's just like sound. It's so fluid. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, but if because of the IPO situation, then they'll stay in the United States. But I don't think the United States can afford to let Ripple leave. I think from a national security standpoint, it would behoove the United States government to do what it can to keep or encourage Ripple to stay in the United States.
I
like that. Yep, security. You're right, 100%. So it goes back to, a little bit of debate, a little bit of tension between the corporate and the government when it comes to regulatory clarity. The one thing that we can point out with that, I love it. IPO, national security. We know that, the government is definitely going to be concerned as far as even Facebook looking at Switzerland. That's where their headquarters is for Libra. They can't allow Ripple to leave. It just doesn't make sense. But at the same point, we also know that from a negotiating perspective, it makes sense to put that big bomb out there, right? Hey, by the way, we don't see things happening fast enough. We're going to leave. It's just simple as that. That's what we're thinking. Now you put the government on notice. Makes sense. Ripple as a company within the blockchain digital asset space is probably the only company that has a dedicated team specifically focused on lobbying the government for clarity, for regulation.
Yeah, and down here in Georgia, or I guess up here in Georgia, Kelly Loeffler is running for Congress after she got appointed by the governor, and she's on the Ag Committee, and on the Agricultural Committee that controls the CFTC. So,
and she also was guilty of. She just got in there, and then she was selling. We had that whole stock blow up thing where she was one of the 5 or 6 people had some of that inside information, and
she was declared safe. Yeah, she had a group of people handling her business while she was in Congress.
Right.
Hey, that's what the AJ said. That's what the Atlanta Journal and Constitution said. So.
Well, that must be right because I did that. It has to be right. I mean, but she's taken some pretty good stances, though. I mean, she's been all right. I mean, but I'm just saying, it's like that's not how you want to what you want to be known for. It's like you get appointed, and all of a sudden it's like, bam! It's like, it's blowing up, and because then everything you say after that sounds bad. It's like I don't manage my own money. I have a firm, and I don't track what they invest in. No matter what you say, you sound really guilty.
That's what it must be like to be a politician. Then I guess I don't know.
It's exactly it. Everything is hyper focused, hypersensitive.
But on the wrong things.
Right, the wrong thing.
You couldn't pay me to be a politician.
They can pay you $175,000 a year.
Plus pension.
Plus pension. And
Plus
some
pension.
other nice incentives. You just got to put your whole life out there for the public to see, and then expect that the other side is going to try to destroy you every chance they get. That's discredit. Yeah, that's how they do it.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good idea, right? So all right, so we covered a lot here. This is amazing. Kind of jumping through everything. I want to circle back to something that was brought up earlier on, and it has to do with interoperability, right? So we talk about all of these different variables. It doesn't really matter what it is once it goes on blockchain, but in this economic digital asset space, the interoperability of everything becomes vital, right? Because without it, you have all these walled gardens, you have all these silos. Chip had brought up there's one of the banks somewhere working on it. And we've seen, I forget what country it is that was building a test case on Stellar, to focus in a little bit on interoperability. But I think it's interesting. There's a bank over in Austria. I brought this up yesterday as well. But I'm probably going to butcher the name of this bank, Raiffeisen Bank, and they're bringing blockchain interoperability to a stablecoin project that they're working on, and their objective is to have it so that they have interoperability between the different blockchains. And I think it's important to see that because here it says, currently a pilot project, the bank partnered with Polish-British fintech firm Billion to use its distributed ledger tech for the e-money solution. So they're looking at e-money, they're looking at interoperability, so they're going beyond the silos. I think that's relevant. Right? What do you guys think? I mean, we see R3 working, on the cross-border payment situation. Obviously, we know Ripple is. Here's a bank. I like focusing on the fact it's a bank that seems to get it.
Yeah, I didn't hear that story, but I agree with you. It's nice to see a refreshing to see a bank that gets anything other than just taking your money.
Yeah, especially a bank that nobody knows how to pronounce. That's always fun. What is it called again, Jeff? Rise or
Starts with an R.
Starts with an R. The R bank.
We're going to refer to as the big guy.
We'll call it R. How many letters are in it? 7.
The big R.
R7, like R3, R7.
R7.
I always love some of these international banks. Are like, or they have some name in there. I'm like, oh man, I'm not even gonna try. So
Well,
sometimes I just
I'm sure if you're in Austria, they can pronounce it just fine.
well, that's the thing, Jeff. If you're there, but I mean, if we're like covering it, it's like we have no clue what it is. You know, it's some weird thing. But it's a giant race. I think fourth quarter, so many things happening. You know, we had 2020's been the year for the books, right? It's been such a weird. I don't think anybody could have planned this. There's nobody that thought any of this kind of weird stuff would happen. But then all of a sudden, you know, a little bit of crypto regulation happening here and there. I think we might end on a positive note. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, an asteroid could still hit Earth, but
Planning. I thought, didn't they say November 2nd? We're supposed to have an asteroid hit Earth.
it's small though, Jeff. No one's really worried about it. That's what they always say. Downplay. It's like just a small asteroid.
I think the big asteroid that's out there, SpaceX has already sent a rover to go collect samples from. I think that was this past week. So
Was that movie? Is that the movie with Bruce Willis where they get on the asteroid and they blow it up? I love that movie, man.
Yeah, how do we know any of this is true? They're just taking right. Everything is like taking something off of a movie.
right.
You know? Oh yeah.
Like, wait a minute. I think I saw that movie. That was awesome, by the way. That movie.
So
What was that called?
it's funny you said that because on other streams I'm on, I tell people that I relate. It's a little more of a open format, if you will, not as anyway. So I tell people that I relate a lot of things that I see to movies because a lot of situations that have happened in movies, it's like, wow, now it's happening in real life.
Right, yeah. Who forecasted that? Let me see.
By the way-
it seems like there's a writer. Yeah, it definitely seems like there's a writer to
The
this.
Simpson writers, anyway. So there's always that, right? I mean,
That one's the best. Yeah.
so I go check out the movie. I'm like, what's the name of that movie? It's called Armageddon. Okay, so that's, I mean, crypto Armageddon, 2020 Armageddon. You know, I mean, a lot can still happen. I mean, we still have 2.5 months left here, but
It's it's been a very, very strange year.
well, there was also something really an interesting news. Like, there's so much stuff to talk about that it was. I think it was Mnuchin. Somebody put it out in the administration. They basically put it out saying they're working very closely with the UK on regulations, talking about cross-border payments, talking about just a flurry of different topics. But I'm like, this is just like everything's dropping. It's like we were like waiting for years, and all of a sudden, think all these little pieces are falling into place. And I started looking at that, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. If the UK has regulations, right? They already have the regulations already set up, and the U.S. is wondering, I don't know, what do we do? And they go like, okay, why don't we just adopt what they're doing? And you have FinCEN. So there's already enough going on where they're not the first ones to jump on and say, like the travel rule. It's like it was 3,000. I want to do 250, and everyone's like, no, that's bad. But when you're the first ones, you can come out and be horrible, make a really bad mistake, and you're like trying to undo that or walk it back could be tough. But now you have Europe says they've got regulations going out 4 years. You got the UK doing it. Now the US just says, yeah, we'll piggyback on them, and if something goes wrong, we'll blame them.
Well, who said that? Who said we don't have to be first? We just have to get it right.
Yeah.
It was who just said that? That was what's his name?
I think Steve Jobs originally said that, but
then it was the Powell guy, I think.
Jay
right?
Powell, Jay Powell said that. He was going back to everything that Apple rolled out 6 years after Android rolled it out. He's like, we don't have to get it right. We don't have to do it first. Just get it right.
Just get it right. Just get it right.
And it's
that makes sense, So look at case precedent. So let those guys screw up first. So if the UK is going to screw up and something's going to impact their economy, hey, at least it wasn't us. We're going to learn. We're going to learn from their mistakes. But it's interesting too. You go through these different, the focal points of what's going on. And I talk a lot about the economic superpower that we're going to see rise up pretty soon in the Middle East. As we're starting to see a little bit of cohesion, the United Countries of the Middle East, coming together, sharing technology and developing an economic powerhouse. And I think it's interesting, there's that, there was a clip circulated with John Kerry, who was the Secretary of State under another administration, saying, no, never going to happen, can't happen, it's not good. And you look at the contrast, I'm like, here's negative, not going to happen. Here's a positive can-do attitude. And you know what? We're moving in the can-do attitude because when it comes down to money, that's what it's all about. They're focused. Everybody wants that, that step up. Everybody wants to do what's right for their country, economically speaking. And we're saying, and like you said, there's so much dropping now in the UK, in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East, over here. It's crazy. It's not like there's a dead news cycle, and almost guaranteed blockchain has a role in everything that's happening right now. Digital asset has a role in everything that's happening right now. And the interoperability between all of these power regions is probably more critical than it's ever been in history. It's something that Swift can't control, right? And the speed of transaction has to be almost instantaneous, for all the things that are going to be going on between all these different countries.
Yeah, right on.
Right.
Agreed.
I think you're spot on about that. So there's a lot of conversation. You see Time Magazine coming out with the Great Reset. There's been a lot of reset conversation, quantum financial system, all this stuff that's bubbling up everywhere that you're reading. It's on YouTube, and then it's Time is covering it. And everyone's been talking about a reset for a while. And Nicera, Nicera being, the country like U.S. and Nicera being but basically get debt jubilee, forgiveness, but a lot of other things announced with it. So I wanted to find out, is this conspiracy stuff thinking about? Because it's going to involve digital assets, right? We know that blockchain is going to be pretty heavily involved in almost anything future, that's in the future. But Sean, what do you think when you hear about this great reset bubbling up everywhere?
I think there's a certain element of conspiracy theory to it. And the reason why I say that is because part of me is like, wow, if that happened, that'd be very nice. And it would be very beneficial to, everybody on the planet. But at the same time, that means that certain powers that be would have to give up that power. So is that really going to happen? Or is it going to be maybe just give the appearance that they've given up their power, but haven't? So
yeah, Jeff, what are your thoughts on that? Like when you hear about all this reset and these glory days and all this stuff that's going to happen.
Man, it's crazy because you go back maybe 6 months ago, and I would have said that you're way too on the conspiratorial side. There was a lot of discussion about the great economic reset, the debt jubilee, and now it's hard to. Come on now. You guys can't see it, but Chip's making funny faces in this other camera that I can see. So, but
sorry, Matt, I couldn't help it. It was too much fun.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Go ahead. Yeah. So so it's a possible.
I think now it's a possibility, right? Because one of the things that we focus in on is we're at a point now where the debt globally is extreme. So can you just blow it up and it just like boom, it's going to blow up in everyone's face and it's got to start over again? You have countries that are already outside of the economics, global economics, that have either been pushed out, pulled out, or have never really participated to a big extent. But there's maybe a little bit too much manipulation. Then we look at what's going on right now. Are they trying to push it, to a complete economic collapse, or is there just a battle being waged behind the scenes and, we're all just collateral damage and the debt's just going to keep growing and growing, and with no end in sight? How do you recover it? Like in the US, what is our current debt? How do we recover that debt? How do we get out of, a trade, these big national debts? I mean, it's a global. Yeah.
I think our debt is unpayable for at least in the U.S. economy. I think there's something has to happen because it's basically it'll implode on itself. We've incurred more debt this year than we have in the last 8 years.
It's insane.
That's incredible to me. You're talking trillions of dollars. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what millions of dollars look like, let alone billions.
Trillions,
just like that. We're going to do a trillion, trillion and a half, 2 trillion, 3 trillion. You're right. They're just throwing the numbers out there. And the thing is, it's crazy, right? And you throw the money out there, it circulates and then most of it's coming back. But where's it going? It's not coming back to the government, stock. It's going back into it's in the economic circulation now. So it's it's taxpayer money that's being pushed into the government, that's being pushed back into the economy, and it's circulating in the economy. But as the dollars flow up or out or wherever they're going, I don't know where they're going. I don't. But yet the government debt seems to keep going up, and now you have one party that wants to give everything away for free. I think that's really, really dangerous. It's a dangerous scenario that we're going to put ourselves in. And then I start, they're talking about universal basic incomes, and now just give. Can you do that with digital asset? You can keep creating digital assets and giving away, free coins. But what's the value of that coin at that point? When you start giving away all over the place, airdrops and this and that, is that, good or bad? I think it brings society to a different extent. It's detrimental overall, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sean?
No, I think you're right. I think you're just talking about, like we were talking about the CBDCs earlier. If the federal government comes up with the Fed coin, great. And let's say they print 100 million of them, and then they decide later on, since it's a centrally controlled currency, they just print more, and that puts us back in the same spot that we're hopefully trying to get out of. So, dealing with the debt in terms of cryptocurrencies, I think that they oh man, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, that happens all the time, man. So you're like, I was so close, I was good, and it's gone. You're like, it's gone.
Yeah. And then just blame it on Chip.
Well, I always come back to this. I always like reposition myself. I'm on the third planet from the sun, in North America, in Florida. I have to like work myself back, and then you like somehow just like moving your mind from it. You sort of think about that. I'm in a room, talking to my computer, which is very odd, but anyway, you're talking to everybody. First time you do this, you're like, dude, there's nobody here. This is beyond weird. You're like, hey, let's talk to the camera. But it's cool, man.
Yeah.
It's cool
when that
to
happens.
you guys.
Then you're like, whoa.
Yeah, then you go.
Wait a minute,
what do I do now? What do I do now? You're like, I hear somebody calling me. Oh, is that my dog? Oh, I haven't fed him. I gotta go. No, but anyway, no. I think look, this whole thing. There's so much going on. I don't even think we can keep up with the cycles anymore. Like, I just get over, I wake up this morning, I start looking at the news, and I'm like, oh my, there's just so much going on. Where do you start? Where do you finish? Where does it end? Then we got another big week ahead of us, because now we've got this election coming up. So it's a week from Tuesday, and now we're in the final stretch of this whole thing. And man, please, I cannot wait for this to be over. It seems like everything's hanging on this. It's like, oh, we can't do that. We got to wait for that. And then, my goodness.
Well, Monday's a big day because we get a new Supreme Court justice.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett. Yeah, we're trading in 3 other initials for 3 new initials. So there you go. But it's gonna be weird. It's gonna I want this thing to end. I want to fast forward till like December 31st, and you're celebrating the 2021. Remember the big conversation was like a year and a half ago? It was like, 2020 is going to be the year for crypto, man. 2020, XRP, the standard, and then 2020, and then everything blew up in the world,
Yeah.
Nobody was planning on that.
Now we're that much closer.
Now we're 2021, 2022. I'm conservative. I like to say between 2027 and 2029, we might see some movement in XRP. I think it's, conservative about 30 cents or so. I don't know. I think we might be able to shift up.
I'm looking forward to 30 cents. It's interesting. It's so exciting. It goes from 24 cents to 25 cents to 26 cents to 25 cents. Meanwhile, Bitcoin moved from about 10,000 to 13,000.
Just like that.
It's awesome though, but that's, and it's interesting. We talked about stability versus volatility with Mark Phillips. And so I keep going back to that. We kept saying, oh, it's important to have stability, but what it is, it's important to have a lack of volatility. You don't want volatility in your digital asset, especially in a banking space. All these other digital assets. And I brought up yesterday, I was talking, why are countries in Latin America putting their money into Bitcoin? Why do they see Bitcoin as the safe haven? Right. Because they look at it, even with that fluctuation, 10% up, 15% down, whatever. Venezuela has 1,000,000% inflation on their currency, probably more than that. It's probably millions at this point. Their currency is so worthless that, you know, when you put it into a Bitcoin or wherever, even if you have 10% up and down or otherwise, hey, that's awesome. Yeah, they're happy. But that's where we're starting to see a lot of adoption. We're seeing a lot of movement, a lot of trend in that direction. I was listening to Ivan on Tech. He was talking about Africa. You know, I talk a lot about Latin America, Africa, and India because I think those are three regions. India, obviously, its own country, but let's maybe look at Southeast Asia or you know other. But Africa, Latin America, to me, are really important, mainly because most of the countries there have they have an issue with the volatility of their currency, a lack of stability of their economics. There's a lot of issues in those regions as a whole, and the adoption within the digital asset space is really important to them. But one thing that Ivan Antak brought up on his video today, and that I've focused in on, especially in Africa, is that you have opportunity zones that are developing there where people can change their entire life overnight because of what's happening. They're going from a completely developing nation, and all of a sudden you're hit with a digital asset, which is, you know, focused on Western developed nation status overnight. And you could have someone propelling themselves into a whole different sphere economically. It's going to be unbelievable. You know, I see immense growth and immense impact in those regions. But I'll tell you what, our biggest hurdle is going to be organizations, government organizations like the IMF and the United Nations that don't want to see that happen. They have no incentive to see development in developing countries, like especially if you look at Africa and Latin America, that are beholden to these organizations like the IMF and the UN. Super detrimental, because this is how those organizations make all their money. They make their money by, you know, taking care of, you know, and we got to get beyond that. And that's why I love this space. One of the things that came up in the conversation between David Schwartz and the CEO of Bitso, he had brought up the democratization of money. We're seeing the democratization of opportunity in regions that say, you know what, all these international organizations that are there to suppress and oppress people's opportunity, people are now able to get away from that. We're seeing the liberation here in the United States. We're seeing the liberation in other countries, and that's going to be the trend of 2021, and it's going to revolutionize. That's why even in the Middle East, you see what previous administrations believed could not happen is happening, and it's because everyone's focused on let's better everybody, let's make everybody better.
Exactly. Well said. Well, I hate to be the guy talking about time here, but it's coming up. We just eclipsed the hour.
You're always
here.
that guy. That's why
I have to be talking. Because I got to keep us on time here. I got to keep us on time here. So, you know, listen, I want to say,
guy Chip.
Yeah, man, somebody has to do it. It's going to be me. So go ahead, John. What do you got?
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I've always been kind of down with OTC, so I appreciate it.
See that? I like that.
Down with OTC. Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. Well, it's good to have you on the set over here, as Rob Cash used to say, is on the set. Since we're on the OTC set here, good to have you, man. Just I'll give you the last word going out. Anything, you know, what do you see coming up? How do you see like the next quarter going into 2021?
Okay, so the last 60-something days of this year, I'm hoping that we have more adoption. And so maybe XRP could go up to 30 cents or 40 cents before the end of the year, so we can end on a good.
I like that. That's a really good way to kind of go out. Jeff, you have anything? And then before we close,
yeah, my parting comment is that you know, I appreciate everybody that supports the On the Chain community. Sean, it was awesome having you on. Love to see you back on again here with us. You know, we love the engagement's phenomenal. And I'm just realizing right now, Chip, you have a completely different camera angle, and we're no longer looking out the window. I'm always looking for birds to hit that window, or at least come in the open window, and now it's like a completely different view behind you.
It's totally different, man. You got to change it up every once in a while. Yeah, I got to change
about
locations.
An hour.
Did you really take an hour? Wow, it's good.
It took an hour. I just realized it just now.
But you saw me making the faces. I was throwing you.
I saw you in the little tiny screen down here. I see that.
So we can see that, and Sean can't. Sean just sees whatever's on the screen at the time, you know. So it's always weird when you're sitting through or watching yourself talk. But I want to thank everybody here tonight, that's in the chat and who's always supporting us, coming in here. You guys are in here. We always see new faces. If it's your first time here, like, subscribe, click that notification bell. And then that's how you know when new videos drop. The other thing too is there's another channel. So if you go down there, there's the link over there. We have another channel. We upload shorter form videos. They're mostly like, different takes on different things that are going on, where On the Chain Live, as you might have guessed, is all kind of live stuff. So we do all the live stuff here, streams. And Jeff did something cool last week. We had a 35-minute video that he premiered, and that was fun. It was really cool to kind of sit in and watch that. So we might do more of that, but we do 3 live streams a week over here. We've got the roundtable that airs at 8 o'clock. Then we've got the sometimes the XRP minute or another live stream during the week, and then Jeff does the HODL review. He does that every Saturday at 8 o'clock, and that's something you can wake up
Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time all this time. So anyway, that's all I got, and thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. And I want to
say, talk about the exclusivity of the Backstage
talk about
interview that we're going to do. So we have been rolling out. We're going to go backstage and have a little bit more of a personal conversation here with Sean. We're going to get to know Sean a little bit more, get to know how he got into crypto. But we're going to do that only and exclusively over on this other platform called Cinnamon. It's the type of cinnamon you don't put in your coffee, but it is a video platform. I think it's cinnamon.video if you want to know, but easily there's probably going to be a link down below in the description. You follow that link and you're going to follow us all backstage, because you know what? Everybody that's on with us right now gets a backstage pass to go with us exclusively over on Cinnamon. And the best part is you don't have to pay anything to go see it. So, you don't need a Coil subscription. You can go over to Cinnamon. You can go sit and watch and have some fun. It's going to be short and it's going to be engaging, but that's where we're all heading right now.
Yeah, and stick around, Sean. Stick around here. Don't bounce out of here. That's it, everybody. Listen, thank you so much. Have a great week. We'll see you on the next one.
We're out.
We're out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.